You are listening to the Disney Dream Girls, an unofficial Disney Theme Parks podcast, and this is show number 514 for Sunday, the 11th of August, 2024, where dreams begin. Hello and welcome to this week's Disney Dream Girls. My name is Michelle Young, and together with my jolly good chum Jane Phipps, we are your guides to the place where dreams begin. Well, this week, no Jane, she's off in Amsterdam or somewhere around the globe somewhere that is not connected to her Disney life, but I have very luckily been able to catch up with Becky and Len, both from Touring Plans, to come and talk to me a little bit and share some of their knowledge about how we can make the most out of our trips to Walt Disney World without spending oodles of cash. So hello and welcome to you both.
Michelle, thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Awesome. So, as I mentioned, obviously, predominantly my audience does tend to be from the UK, with quite a lot of Americans. I don't know whether it is my accent or the fact I keep talking about all the amazing English candy or whatever. The row about biscuits still goes on. They're biscuits, not cookies. But we digress already, not even been on the show 10 seconds with Len, and I'm mentioning Jammy Dodgers. But we are going to talk a little bit about Lightning Lane, planning your trips, how to do it with a Lightning Lane and how to do it without a Lightning Lane, and what you can utilise to maximise your time in the parks without giving money over to Disney as well. And I suppose the first person I'm really going to go to is Becky, because you've got a weekend trip coming up and you have just booked in some Lightning Lanes. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience of booking them in?
Of course. So as context, I'm much aligned with the idea of spending as little money in the parks as possible, and fully believe that you can, especially in time periods like the summer, early fall, when there aren't many crowds, you can do just as good of a job at getting all those exciting attractions in by planning well as you can by paying Disney money to skip the lines. That being said, I have to, go and test it myself for science. And this weekend trip is with my 8-year-old. It's a one-on-one trip, and she is all about the thrill rides. And it's a short trip, so sure, I'm going to try to use Lightning Lanes to help her get to do the things that she really wants. Now, it is a short trip, 2 full days and 2 partial days. And that means that advance window didn't quite help me as much as it might someone with a longer trip. So for those that don't know, with Lightning Lane Multi-Pass and Single Pass, there are several advanced booking windows now. So if you are staying on site at a Disney resort and you are in the United States or Canada, as pertains to people on this podcast, we'll get into that, you can start booking your Lightning Lanes for your vacation 7 days before you check in, and you can book for the entire length of your vacation at that time. So it's like dining reservations, which are more days out, but your whole trip unlocks at once. And so you can go through day by day or the days that you want to purchase it and go and plan and book all at the same time. If you are staying off-site, but you have date-based tickets, your window opens 3 days before your ticket starts. And so we'll talk about some of the differences there. But in either of those situations, you do have to be in the United States or Canada to book. So if you're flying in from the UK or anywhere else, you've got to wait till you're on American soil. But you also tend to have those longer trips. And so once you get here, you can start backloading the second half of your vacation with some of those advanced plans. I will say, based on my experience, now we're traveling here in mid-August. It's pretty clear that this summer is not crowded. Even still, I booked for the second and third days of my trip, so I wasn't booking 10 days out. I wasn't booking 14 days out. But I had a little bit of a jump, and I was pleasantly surprised at the times that were available to me for those days. I will say that there's probably I have a lot of advanced knowledge, right, about which parks to book first and which attractions to look for. But I think it was encouraging from that perspective. Looking 8 days out and 9 days out, Tiana's was already sold out. So that's a bummer for people that want to book that in advance. The flip side to that is Tiana has refreshes, drops of additional availability pretty reliably 45 minutes after every hour, starting at 10:45. So I specifically wasn't going to book Tiana's anyway. I booked space, and I'm going to try to pick Tiana's up during the day. We'll see how that goes. But if you're not selecting that super most popular tier 1 attraction at each park, there's really good availability at the other tier 1 attractions. And the same goes for sort of the various bands of tier 2 attractions too. The only thing that felt bad about that process, because it was one of those rare instances where Disney IT worked well. I flew through, got everything I wanted, was able to modify easily, didn't have any errors. But suddenly, instead of like getting to the parks and deciding I want to buy Cosmic Rewind for the day and dropping $15 and then not thinking about it till the next day when maybe I buy something else, now I was buying a bunch of single passes and multi passes all at once. And that sticker shock, you got to prepare yourself for it because it is real. It is real now.
Did you buy the passes for all 4 days, including your 2 partial days?
Yes. So what I did on arrival day, we're flying down on a Saturday. I bought just Flight of Passage for that day. I didn't buy multi-pass.
Yeah.
The next day is a Sunday. We're doing Magic Kingdom. So I bought Tron and multi-pass. And then
it's $100.
Yeah. And for 2 people, right?
For 2 people, there's $100.
Traveling with a family of 4, right? And so that was painful. The next day was the most painful because we're trying to get Hollywood Studios and Epcot done in one day with the thrill rides. So I bought Rise of the Resistance, Cosmic Rewind, and multi-pass. That was painful. And then for our departure day, we bought just Cosmic Rewind to do that one again. But yeah.
So what was that? So that was an initial, what, $320?
A lot of money all at once. Yeah, it was something like $225, $250, I think.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you're still purchasing each individual day separately, but they all come through all at once.
Yeah, it's one large number,
Yes.
That's horrifying.
It's horrifying. Yeah. So if you're buying for a 14-day trip, prepare yourself.
For 4 people, So then double that and multiply by 2.5. So that'd be, would you pay $250? So 500. Yeah, you're looking at 1,500 quid. Yeah.
And you're looking at the exchange rate from the UK to the US at the moment, which is appalling. It's like, oh my God, it's a big chunk of change.
We should be going to UK parks. You guys should be coming here.
Yeah, only if we had our own Walt Disney World here in England.
Alton Towers for everyone.
Yeah, we could have a Greggs in every land.
I think where this makes the biggest difference are those what used to be individual Lightning Lane and are now single passes, because based on availability, return times, it was very obvious that other than for the most popular attractions, people were waiting until later into their park day to see if they needed those, and they were buying them. Mm-hmm. But almost all of them are sold out by the time the park opens now. And so you are forced into that decision of, am I going to buy it or am I going to gamble on the day that additional ones become available or I won't need it? So that's going to be where you have to really make the tough decision in advance now.
So Len, what would you recommend a park goer as an optimum idea to book in each park as a Lightning Lane if they go down the route of paying for the pass? What would you recommend?
So the best choices in each park?
Yeah.
For Magic Kingdom, Becky, correct me if I'm wrong here, it's probably something like something like Peter Pan or Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
For Magic Kingdom. For Epcot, it's going to be probably Remy. I mean, maybe Frozen if you're not going to do Remy. But I wouldn't book Soarin'. And then for Hollywood Studios, it's got to be Slinky Dog Dash. I mean, there's a big things right there. And then Animal Kingdom Safaris. I mean, Everest is going to go down any day now, so for its refurb. And Dinosaur.
It better not go down before I get down there, Lynn.
No. Sorry, no. I mean, it will eventually go down for its own refurb, and then Dinosaur's going down as part of the whole land closure. So I think Kilimanjaro Safaris is the safety, or Navi probably actually Navi.
Yep. I would say I encourage people always, like, there's the biggest time savers, but then if you're going to rope drop the parks, you take that into consideration too. So like Lynn was saying with Remy and Frozen, if you're rope dropping from International Gateway anyway, well, don't book Remy. Like, just go to Remy. Book Frozen. Don't book Soarin'. But if you're rope dropping from main entrance, there's going to be a ton of people at Remy before you get there, so maybe book it. It's those considerations of don't just always default to what's going to save you the most time. Have 2 or 3 options and then figure out how you want your day to go so that you can make the best use of it.
This is why we wrote software, because the answer to every question, like what should I do, is it depends, right? Where are you starting from? What do you want to see? When are you getting there? Right? Those are all important considerations for those decisions.
Let's move on to that. Let's move away from the whole Lightning Lane giving Disney more money, which they don't obviously need right now anyway.
I don't think you're going to like the answer that I'm going to give you about this, but go ahead.
Okay. So if I'm going to try and avoid utilising Lightning Lanes, and I am going to use what you were just hinting at there with using the Touring Plans app to put in what time I'm going to be at the park, what time I'm wanting to have a lunch break, if I need to have a break from the park, any snacks and things, and it can optimise what I want to do, and then think about things like walking distance and waiting distance, etc. Tell me more.
So I think, Becky, I think you'd agree here, we still would recommend that you stay on site.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still giving Disney more money than you would if you were staying on site. And the reason for that is, especially if you're coming from the UK, you get early theme park entrance. And that's 30 minutes where the general public isn't available or isn't allowed into the parks, but Disney Resort guests are. And the converse of that is if you're staying off-site, by the time you're admitted into the park, there are thousands of people already in the park and in lines ahead of you. So there's virtually no way to see any popular attraction without a long wait in line if you're staying off-site and you don't want to pay for Lightning Lane.
So basically, get to the park as it opens and get one of those big hitters done.
Right. So like for Animal Kingdom, which only has one tier of Lightning Lane, if you were staying on-site and you were at the front of the rope drop crowd for Animal Kingdom, you could walk onto Flight of Passage without paying for a Lightning Lane single pass, right? And then from there, you could do Navi River Journey with a minimal wait, and then be at Kilimanjaro Safaris just shortly after it opens when there's almost no wait, and then basically start a clockwise toward the park from there. Going to Everest next, but at that point you would have won the day.
Yeah, because as you say, if Dinosaur's down, there isn't a great deal of thrills left. It's shows and experiences. Or food.
Oh, food. Yeah, also food.
Food. You meant exploring restaurants, right? That's what I heard.
Yeah. Well, trying out new delights and food and lots more food is obviously a main part of going to the theme park. These attractions are just something I do in between.
I like your style.
Something to pass the time while you're digesting.
Yeah.
But I think Hollywood Studios would probably be the most complicated from a touring plan perspective. So let's assume you got there super early. You'd still go to Slinky Dog Dash first thing. Second, I would probably do, this is counterintuitive, I would probably do Toy Story Mania because there's not a huge line right then, and it would save you some backtracking. And then third, I would do Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. So we've actually tested this several times over the past year, testing all 12 different variations of 4 separate attractions. 24 different versions of 4 attractions to start with. And that seems to be the best order in general to start that.
And then at least if you're not with the Lightning Lane, you can only book 1 attraction a day anyway, the same one. So you couldn't get Slinky twice in a day. Am I right?
Right, still no repeat. Yeah.
What about of the strategy of picking either Slinky Dog or Rise as your very last attraction?
I mean, the thing that you run into there is Rise of the Resistance is unreliable. That's the tricky part. It's one of the least reliable rides in Walt Disney World. It averages just under 2 hours of downtime a day every day. So waiting until the last minute is kind of a gamble because at some point in the last half hour that the park is open, if the ride is down, they're going to have to decide whether to make the effort to bring it back up for 25 minutes of running. That's tricky.
And it could get backed up with all the people who were trying to ride it earlier in the day, but it was down, so you could have a long wait.
Yeah, the last thing Disney wants to do is give back money for Lightning Lanes. That's right. So those people would get priority.
So maybe for me, thinking about my priorities, I would possibly go to Rise and then try and go into the queue for Slinky Dog on an evening, just purely because. And I like to ride it at night because you see all the fireworks.
There you go. The other thing you could do is you could watch for when Rise breaks down. Just keep watching the app to see when it comes back up. Because if you can time that perfectly, no one else will be in the line because they usually dump the queue or kick everybody out of the standby line when the ride is done for a period of time. So if you could be the first one back in the standby line or among the first group, you would get the shortest wait during the day that you possibly could have. That does require a little bit of luck and a lot of paying attention to the app, but still a strategy.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, and you can do that on any attraction that's gone down as well. I suppose, like Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is another one that springs to mind.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Becky, what's our advice for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train for the book in the morning?
Don't rope drop at early entry. One, because that's what everyone tries to do. So you've got to be at the front of the pack. Two, it's relatively unreliable right at the start of the day. It has the worst opening of any attraction in Magic Kingdom. So typically we recommend either knocking Peter Pan out first and then trying Seven Dwarfs if the wait time is still reasonable and the park hasn't opened yet, or saving it for later in the evening when everyone's gathering for fireworks. That assumes you don't also want a prime spot for fireworks, but that's what we typically recommend.
Yeah, quite a tricky sort of juggling act to think of which way around to do things, but yeah, it makes sense not to go and rope drop that and to go and hit Seven Dwarfs later in the day, because I personally prefer it in the evening anyway.
Right. And it really hasn't been having terrible waits. I mean, we're in a low crowd period anyway, so if you're going the week of Thanksgiving, this is terrible advice. But the posted waits at Seven Dwarfs have been lower than any other individual Lightning Lane or what is now a single pass. So if that's the one you get stuck waiting standby for, it's not the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, and again, we're in a scenario where we're explicitly avoiding buying the individual, lane single pass, right? But if we were telling people what we would do, we would buy I would recommend buying the single pass for both Rise of the Resistance and Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, because it almost guarantees that you're going to ride at some point during the day, and just eliminates the complication of having to work around the unreliability of the ride first thing in the morning, which is a perverse incentive, which we've talked about before, right? I mean, the fact that we're telling people to spend money to avoid maintenance problems at Disney World basically gives Disney no reason to fix the problem, right?
Yeah. So. Len, what's happened with the single rider queue they were trialling over at Rise? Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't. I mean, it seems to be running okay. The more interesting thing to me is why they don't have single rider yet at Rennie. When it was designed for it, you can actually see the single rider sign on the wall. Go in. Like, why is there not a single rider?
From my friend who was in the park yesterday, they messaged me and said the trial was over, so they weren't able to take part in it.
And I think it's so they're studying it right now. I think the feedback that they got from the single riders was that you missed a lot of the queue in the pre-show. Mm-hmm. So if I understand correctly, a single rider would basically show up on the right before the entrance on the Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
Right, the right part and the trip on there. And so for a lot of people, especially repeat visitors who want to experience that was a little bit disappointing. And also, if you're a single rider, you've never been on before, you have to understand how you got there in the story. Like, how did I end up on
you're missing that. Yeah, you're just there.
On the other hand, you didn't pay $25 for it, and you didn't wait 2 hours in line. So, I mean, there are trade-offs.
Yep. I wonder if Remy not having it is because it's such a family attraction. I mean, I assume there would still be enough demand in a single rider line to go through it, but you're not going to have families splitting up and etc. So that's interesting.
Because it's strange because it works so well in Paris, does the single rider line. So, and also the lines aren't as horrific as in the American theme parks either. So there is that option as well. We've spoke a little bit about using the Lightning Lane and planning out your day and thinking about how things are going. Is there anything in particular, Becky, that you're really looking forward to more than anything on the trip you're going on this weekend?
I'm looking forward. So I have two girls. They're almost 6 and now 8.5. So I took my almost 6-year-old at the end of May, beginning of June. And she is the opposite of her sister. So we did things like Living with the Land and Jungle Cruise. And It's a Small World. It was all boats, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And then this kid is so wildly different and just wants to do Expedition Everest 5 times and Rock and Roller Coaster for the first time and Tron. And I think it's cool. I think when people plan Disney trips for their family, most of the research they do, if they do research, there are things like what is most popular, and then I will put those on my list instead of really thinking about tailoring what their kids, what their family, what they themselves are going to enjoy. And sure, some popular attractions inform that. So I'm excited to really make this trip for her. I will say, because of that, the two things I'm most excited for, one, she is a very, very, very big Stitch fan, as are most kids her age now. I think it's funny that Stitch has seen sort of a resurgence. Loves Stitch. So we are doing, I'm using air quotes around breakfast at Ohana. I haven't been to Ohana in over a decade. I'm not a fan, but I am very excited for her to meet Stitch at breakfast. She's going to be wearing all her Stitch gear. That quote-unquote breakfast is reserved for 12:05 p.m. So we get to rope drop Magic Kingdom and then go do our character breakfast, which I think is cool. We are also doing, she wants to be a vet when she grows up and has wanted that since she was 3. So we are doing Dolphins in Depth at the Seas with Nemo and Friends, which 8 people a day get to do that 5 days a week, and you get to go and actually be in the water with the dolphins. That's on our last day. So I am incredibly excited because it's just going to blow her little mind, and that's going to be fun to watch as a mom.
That sounds so cool. I think we're doing the rhino one, up close with rhinos.
Yes. Oh, you'll have so much fun. That one's glorious.
I just adore the animal experiences that you can have at Disney, which you would never get anywhere else, really, unless you go to another facility that have these range of animals. So, yeah, very excited about that.
I was just going to say the Up Close with Rhinos and the Caring for Giants are some of the most reasonably priced backstage tours that you can do. And so if people are interested in animals and looking to, dip their toes in what those backstage experiences are like, those are both excellent options.
So Len, I'm going to ask you, we're at the point where D23 has not announced anything as yet. What do you anticipate to hear?
The domestic parks, I think we're going to hear a lot about Tropical Americas, which we already know is the retheming of the dinosaur ride to Indiana Jones. I suspect the entire Dino Land itself will be rethemed to Coco. We're going to get an Encanto ride. The big question there is going to be, is it a water ride like the concept artist showed, or is it going to be a trackless system like maybe Mystic Manor in Hong Kong? So that's the big question there. I don't think we're going to hear very much about Beyond Big Thunder, the Magic Kingdom expansion, for a couple of reasons. One is I don't think they know what's going there yet. And number two, keep in mind that Disney has to do one of these announcements every year, so they have to hold some stuff back. So I would say for Magic Kingdom, we'll probably hear about an evening parade coming in 2025. We should probably get an afternoon parade at Hollywood Studios, and maybe some other live entertainment stuff for the studios as well. There's an outside chance that Epcot might get an Imagination redo. I know that was one of the proposals, but I don't know if that's something that they're going to greenlight. We might also hear more about what's going on at Test Track, because Becky, other than the one piece of concept art they've released for that, and the concept art was here's a car in a dark room and there's some trees in the background.
Yes, I'm hoping for that. They got a permit from the Dome company that did the Dome. that has the Guardian's Dome. So that's interesting. That doesn't really tell us about the ride, or it might not. I don't know. But I would love some at least concept art of what Test Track is going to become.
I would love to see it too. So Michelle, I mean, I think the short-term strategy, like 2025 and 2026, is Disney basically leaning on live entertainment and shows, because that's what they can build quickly to counter Epic Universe. And then for the next 2 years after that, would probably be things like retheming of existing attractions, the Indiana Jones thing that we talked about, the retheming of Test Track, the redo of It's Tough to Be a Bug, and things like that. And then 5 years and beyond is where we might start to see brand new attractions built from the ground up. So we've got a number of D23s between now and then. Disney really needs to hold back on their stuff like that.
Yeah, because it's been quite surreal with the cruise line. They've just literally blurted everything out.
I was literally going to say, they're probably going to have 6 more cruise ships. But I was talking to somebody at DCL a couple of days after that Tokyo Disneyland announcement. I was like, I didn't hear anything on this. Like, not even a whisper. And the person I was talking to was like, I walked into the office and no one knew what was going on. So I don't know how they kept it that quiet, but there was no gossip about that one ahead of time. But I'm super excited to see the Destiny. So I'm on the Treasure at the end of the year. I'm excited to see the Destiny. The Adventure looks crazy. Yeah. So it's 3 and 4 nights out of Singapore. From what I understand, it's just doing all sea days for all of its trips. So it's not going to Southeast Asia or anything. But the idea of getting, like 7,000 Chinese businessmen on a Disney cruise line to me is just so bonkers that I have to experience it. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'm probably just going to do it back to back, make it a 7-night cruise out of it. Because the ship is huge. And there's no way you can see it for days.
But I suppose if there's no ports to bother with, which is the ideal reason why you want to do a Disney cruise, because you don't want to get off the ship and see things.
Yes.
It makes more sense. That's why I chose not to do Disney to Alaska, because I wanted to see Alaska. Whereas if I want to do a cruise where I want to enjoy the Disney, I don't really care about where I'm going.
Yeah, you could just sail around England. Yeah. And the other thing, too, is because you've seen England, is where I was going with that. Not because there's nothing to see. You've seen it. You lived it. The other thing is, like with the Japan cruise ship, those itineraries, I think, are going to be all around Japan. I don't think they're going to China. Number one, I don't think the Chinese want the Japanese, and I don't think the Japanese want to go see China. So given the vast distances to everywhere else, the fact that these are going to be relatively short cruises, I don't think really they have time to go anywhere other than around Japan. So, but that's going to be interesting to see, too, what they come up with for itineraries.
Well, we'll find out this weekend. It's a busy weekend ahead for us because it's the first Halloween party, because obviously it's 2 billion degrees temperature outside and we're having Halloween. Yeah. Of course, and D23 coming out, so there's lots, but there's also a really big thing happening with regards to the unofficial guide. Becky, tell us more.
The Unofficial Guide 2025 releases on Tuesday, August 13th. You can pre-order it already before that, but we're really excited to have a nice, refreshed edition for everyone. I will say the asterisk to that is we went to print before Lightning Lane Multipass and Single Pass got announced, so you're going to have lots of pages and data about Genie Plus. Thankfully, a lot of the data carries over about things like time savings, etc. But there's going to be a little digital companion all about Lightning Lane Multipass and Single Pass as well, so that we don't leave anyone hanging. But I'm excited to celebrate because I will be swimming with the dolphins the day the book comes out, and so it's just going to be a lot of goodness on that day.
And we'll link in some places where you'll be able to purchase the book and get it in your hands so you can start using it to plan all your upcoming Disney trips.
Hey, thank you.
You are very welcome.
I think one of the big fun things for the book in transitioning it to Becky was having Becky look at it with a fresh set of eyes and say, what do we condense this down to? So the book is what, 230 pages? Shorter than it was?
It's like 220 pages less than last year. Yes. Good editing. Still just as much good information, but you don't have to flip quite as many pages to get to all of it. So that's nice. But as Michelle was mentioning earlier, it is on thicker paper this year, so it still holds that same weight if you need that for any purposes.
Yes.
All right, real quick before we go, we should talk about dining availability in Walt Disney World.
Oh, yes.
that you can get a reservation everywhere all the time now.
Yes. Oh, this is good because I'm going to post this on my Instagram later today.
See,
Because
I do know a little bit about this destination. Go ahead, Becky.
yeah. So, what I decided to do last night, because here's the backstory. My family is going back to Disney in early October for a long weekend, which would typically be a pretty popular time to go to Disney, at least for people here in the US. And I, due to planning this upcoming trip and work things, a million things, I totally missed my 60-day window to make my dining reservations. Just not even, totally forgot. And so I did it 2 or 3 days late and went on and was shocked that I could get reservations to anywhere, including Space 220 restaurant and lounge, that are typically, like, if you're not doing them 67 days in advance, you're not going to get them. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. And I know Lynn and others have looked into this too. But last night I decided to do my own investigation. And so that was a Thursday night. We're recording on a Friday morning, and I looked at next day availability. So I was looking at Friday availability.
I have today's availability.
Yeah, see? So I was looking at last night, I pulled Friday's availability. I could eat at every single character meal other than Ohana breakfast wasn't available. I could get at Be Our Guest, which is historically a tough reservation to get. It hasn't been that way this summer, but there were 16 different lunch times and 17 different dinner times I could get. If I wanted fine dining, which you think on a Friday night, like this should be date night, this should be like fine dining should be booked. There were 6 times at California Grill, 10 times at Le Cellier, 7 dinner times at Topolino. Like I could get in anywhere I wanted. Other typically difficult to get reservations include Tepanito in the Japan Pavilion. It had 11 different times available. Homecoming, I only found 1 time for, but that's still something. Yak and Yeti, which is typically difficult to get, had 2 different times for me. And like, as I went through this, every restaurant had availability 1 day in advance, and that's not saying anything about walk-up availability, which has been great this summer too, other than Space 220 restaurant and lounge weren't available next day, but those were literally the only restaurants that did not have next day availability.
That's amazing.
Wild.
I checked this morning, and there's Space 220 availability today.
Well, there you go.
Lunch.
So
yeah. Every single restaurant, I checked this morning, Michelle, right before we started, so like at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, when the parks are already open, every single restaurant had availability, at least for lunch, if not dinner. And like for Be Our Guest, there were 36 individual reservations.
Yeah.
That's surreal.
Astounding.
It is surreal. That's a good word for it. It's, like nothing I've ever seen before.
The only place I've struggled on this trip to get a reservation was Homecoming, and I know I can go there and say I want to eat and I'll get somewhere to sit. That's the only place I've struggled. Places like Kona for breakfast or Steakhouse 71 in the past, I've always struggled. Beaches and Cream, no problem at all.
No.
Which is
go forth and eat. And
really hard to get. It's got 27 different reservations available today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think this goes back to the thing we were talking about when we started the show about Disney charging for Lightning Lane. Like there's people have a finite amount of money. So in this case, I think they're shifting some money from sit-down meals to paying for Genie Plus. So, Disney's theme park revenue keeps going up, but it's not unlimited. And I think we're seeing here people making hard decisions about where to spend their money. It's not in a theme park restaurant.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I've done with my trip. We booked in January, so we weren't expecting to have to pay anything over and above. That's my savings spot. And if I don't have enough money, I'm not going to be buying any lightning lanes. I'm not going to be having any table service. I will make do with snackage, getting my water delivered to the hotel via Garden Grocer, because again, I'm not paying Disney $5 for a bottle of water. So
you're right. You've got the best plans.
Yeah. Well, it's because I listen to people like you who advise the masses on how to save money and time when you're making your trips to the parks.
Right, do the math, the numbers. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah. Excel spreadsheet queen here as well. So, yes.
Love it.
It's the
You're my people.
only place anywhere that you can book a holiday and make the most out of it with Excel. It is fantastic. And everyone still looks at me weird. And it's like, no, you need
No,
Excel.
you just know the secret. Yeah, you've got the key.
Right, guys, if anyone wants to contact either of you to ask a plethora of questions and to beg you, Becky, to do a Touring Plans Teaches to the new Lightning Lane system, where can they get hold of you?
On my to-do list, yeah. Feel free, you can reach me on Instagram is probably the easiest. I'm at Raising Mini Me's, mini as in the mouse. Or check out one of my blog posts on the Touring Plans blog, leave a comment there, and I'm always checking those.
And Len?
I'm Len Testa on Instagram, and my email is len@touringplans.com. And you can also find me on the Disney Dish podcast.
The highlight of my Monday morning.
Thank you.
It made the drive home from the northeast, which was 5 hours, very, very bearable. So
For Americans, 5 hours is not a bad road trip at all. But I know for the UK, that's an event that you'll talk about for generations, right?
yeah, and when you're with your kids in the car and all they like is drum and bass, and it's like, I can't hear any lyrics. It's giving me tinnitus. Please turn it down.
Yeah, that's bad. Have you considered headphones, kid?
Or sitting on the roof rack. One or the other. Your choice.
One or the other, exactly.
I have a boot. We can put the luggage on the back seat. Okay, well, thank you both so much for your time. Really, really wonderful talking with you. Becky, have a fantastic time in the world with your daughter this weekend. Len, keep up all the good stuff. You know how to make all of our lives so much better with the content you release. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And until next time, it's a goodbye from me.